Hello, and welcome in GoDigiBioS Talks. This is our fourth podcast, and today I have a pleasure to have a company of another very special guest, Sarah Velten, who is a PhD, the Senior Manager of Biodiversity in Adelphi Research, known European Think and Do Tank. And also Sarah is a leader of Work Package 5 in our GoDigiBioS project, which focuses on Transformative Labs, stakeholder engagement, and co-design. Sarah is a known specialist on the citizen engagement in various processes related to the sustainable transformation of territories and communities across Europe. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me and having me here today.
It's a great pleasure to have you here and hear some insights and some approach from you. So let's dive in. Very crucial actually component of our projects, of GoDigiBioS projects, is Transformative Labs, or how we call it TLABs. So Sarah, could you give a very brief introduction? What are they? What function do they serve? And how is our projects actually pursuing transformative change over there?
Yes, of course. So for me, and I hope for the rest of the project too, the TLABs are really the heart of the project. It's all about getting people into the project and engaged with the project. In a general fashion, TLABs are spaces where people can interact and participate in developing innovative approaches. And these approaches are supposed to address problems which are ongoing and wicked, so complex, really difficult to solve. They react in ways that are really counterintuitive and that are placed in configurations of social, ecological, and technological systems. And these problems are addressed through learning and experimentations. That's why it's a lab, because it's about experimenting. So that's a bit complex. So if I had to put it in everyday language, it's about people that come together to think about and try solutions to problems that concern society, nature, and technology. And so in that way, TLABs are a perfect approach to GoDigiBioS, because in GoDigiBioS we're searching and developing tools and governance approaches and policy mixes that are supposed to help people and nature with the support of technology, especially digital technology. So in GoDigiBioS we have 4 TLABs in different regions across Europe. So there's one TLAB in Matosinhos in Portugal, another one in the Delta de Llobregat next to Barcelona, one in Bulgaria in the city of Russia in its region, and one in Italy in the Florence Plain. And what is the same of all of these TLABs is that they are in peri-urban areas, and we chose this kind of regions because they unite the challenges of both urban areas and rural areas, but at the same time they're really underexplored in the projects. So that's why we chose this kind of region. And what do we do there? Well, the TLABs in our project, they fulfill 2 functions. On the one hand, we use them to co-design the outputs that we are developing in the project. So to make sure that they're really relevant and actionable to the people who are supposed to use them. So our decision support system, our roadmaps and policy recommendations. They need to have these insights coming from the TLABs. And the other, I think even more important point is that we're promoting change on the ground, or at least that's our hope with the TLABs. So we want to develop together with the local actors in those TLAB regions governance approaches and policy mixes that will help them to make a good use of technologies, digital technologies, to steer the regions towards a nature-positive society.
Right. Thanks so much for introduction. While I'm on my side, we'll try to promise to our listeners to have a more deep dive in every TLAB separately in our upcoming podcasts, and we already had a little dive already in Delta Llobregat case in next to Barcelona. Some more podcasts about other TLABs are upcoming. Meanwhile, Sarah, it's also important to mention, of course, the role of local citizens and stakeholders. So coming back to our approach, as we are working not only with regional local authorities, but also broader audience, right?
Yes, of course. So, yeah, really a focus of the project are local authorities, and they do play a crucial role in addressing pressing biodiversity issues, but in the end, they cannot do it all alone. On the one hand, that is because they do not have all the necessary knowledge and all the insights that would be needed to properly address these problems. And then, in most cases, these authorities and the people working there, they are not the ones who take the everyday decisions on land management. And in the end, it's mostly land management that is responsible for what happens with biodiversity. And yeah, last but not least, even for the decisions they can take, and I mean, they still can take a lot of decisions and decide on policy and rules, but if they do not have a minimum level of buy-in from the people who are affected by these decisions, then it will be very hard or not even impossible to, have these rules and policies happen.
Of course.
And therefore, it is important to engage the citizens and stakeholders because they're part of the picture and therefore also part of the solution, and they need to be part of the whole story and the process.
Of course, yes. And now let's try to take a closer look on what specific approach that GoDigiBioS takes towards citizen and local stakeholders as part of this. There are public forums and citizen engagement formats. So, Sarah, what are they? Can you make a brief introduction?
Yes, so these two formats, they are part of our overall kickoff of the engagement processes in the 4 TLAB regions. And they are meant to open up the process in the beginning to collect a diversity of perspectives and also as a second objective to make the project a little bit known in the region so that people know that this is going on there. So we have two different formats here. One is aimed at the broad public, which is the public engagement formats, of course, to really address citizens and, not a very specified stakeholder group, but really just anybody who is there and who might be interested. And the stakeholder engagement forum, or public forum as we call it, it's more aimed at more specific stakeholders, but still in a more broader fashion. So any kind of stakeholder who might be interested in the topic can participate here. And yeah,
great. And maybe let's try to dive a bit more methodological approach of those activities and forums. So, Sarah, maybe could you please explain to our listeners how actually the project collected opinions from local citizens and public audience in our 4 TLABs? And
so for the citizen engagement, we had a diversity of approaches, and we all had in Matezinic an all-in-person approach where we had a workshop where people learned about invasive species and also learned really hands-on some management practices to reduce and control invasive plant species. We had an all-online format in the Delta where we had a 1-hour webinar which started with a presentation on a rather novel topic in the area and also some Mentimeter exercises where we could gather insights from the participants, and they could also see what the other participants were thinking. And then we also had a very interesting hybrid approach, which was applied in Ruse and in the Florence Plain. So here we engaged in in-person engagement with online engagement. So on the one hand, we had project members on the streets talking to people in popular places in these areas. And they were asking them questions, but that was also based on some online survey and an online mapping tool. So with this mapping tool, it was possible for people to indicate where they saw places where biodiversity was really thriving in their region, but also places where they saw decline in biodiversity, and they could add some more details on that. But it was not just that. We also had this linked with a QR code, which then was printed on stickers, and we distributed these stickers in these areas and also through social media, the link also through social media and so on, so that people could participate by themselves, because it's not everybody's desire to talk to people on the street, and I can understand that very well. I don't like it either.
Right, so kind of
Yeah.
multiplying the communication channels
Yeah.
to citizens and giving perspective from yeah.
Different, yeah, and
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
catering to different needs that people have.
Absolutely. No, that's completely amazing approach. Congrats with a very successful implementation of it and recent field surveying and of course online surveying in our 4 TLABs. And what actually about stakeholder engagement? So what about our public forum? So what approach was taken over there?
Yeah, so here it was a more formal, more workshop-like setting. So we really had a venue and invited people to come there. And yeah, I mean, these things always follow a certain process. Of course, in the beginning, we talked about the project for people to get to know it. But then the key issues were that we had to exercise to prioritize issues so that people could express in these areas there are a lot of different biodiversity issues, many of them they're interlinked, but yeah, to express and to find out what actually were the most important issues in their regions. And then we applied a problem tree methodology so that people could explore what are actually the causes of these issues they found important and the impact. So in that problem tree, the causes they are like at the roots of the tree, and then the impacts they go into the branches, and it's a nice visual way to explore those and to start thinking about what are actually the causes and impacts.
To explain the nature with a nature graphic-like solutions, yeah.
Exactly, very, very well said. Yeah, and in some of the regions we also applied in the same way a solution tree to start and identify some solutions that could maybe be applied rather quickly.
Yeah, that's insane. But that's also very important, of course, to keep those stakeholder meetings, which we expect, of course, some very more precise and structured outcomes in very structured way. So I believe it's also a very great methodological approach was taken there. So congrats also with successful implementation of public forums in TLABs. And about talking about those activities which already have already taken place in previous month of the project. So shall we share maybe some impressions and interesting insights from the public or of course stakeholders in various 4 TLABs? What was interesting shared there?
Yes, so I think it's really my place to more talk about the impressions so far. I think the results are coming more in the podcast of the different TLABs. So, I participated in some. So I was at the public forum in Ruse and participated online in Italy, and was also at the webinar that took place in Delta de Llobregat. So it was a very diverse picture. So in Ruse, for example, we were really afraid that not many people would come because biodiversity is not such a popular topic there. But in the end, we had like 18 participants from the outside, which was really successful. The room was really much fuller than we expected it to be, and it was really a nice discussion and productive. In the Delta, it was a bit different. There, the situation is really heavy with conflict. People have already made so many disappointing experiences there. So even in the upfront to the public engagement format to the webinar, there were many answers like, I'm fed up with talking about this topic. I'm not going to participate. But then, there were still many participants, even in face of these situations, which was really good. And they really, appreciated both the public forum and the public engagement. And thought it interesting, the things they learned there and the insights. And in Florence, I saw a very engaged discussion. It was a smaller group at the public forum there, but still, still a diverse group and very engaged people. And the very interesting thing there was that we had a project partner from Spain, Anthony, also talking with them about his system dynamics model to get further insights on that one. And he explained it in Spanish and the people in Italy replied in Italian and it worked out just perfectly.
I was present during this. It was insane also.
Yeah, but it worked perfectly. So Absolutely. That was the great thing to see.
We'll get later to Anthony to also present to us his system dynamic models and all introduction. It will be in upcoming podcasts also.
Yes. And yeah, but in general, I'm always like, when I also read the pins from the public engagement on the mapping tool, it's always so exciting and interesting to see the different perspectives that the people have. So yeah, this is really rich information for us.
Absolutely. And it's great to know that so many people across Europe, across the different 4 TLABs, were actually interested to take in parts and in those survey and indicate their own opinion regarding the problems of biodiversity and dynamics of local biodiversity and nature laws within all of those tools and methods we developed. So that's congrats also to this achievement. I believe it's very important to take all of the citizens' perspective and stakeholders' perspective as well. But actually following this, Sarah, could you also explain how all of this information we gathered from all of this process in the recent month, and of course feedback from public forums and citizen engagement, how it will be taken into account in the further project development? So what added value could this multi-level engagement format offer to us?
Yeah, so there are multiple ways in which we are going to use or already are using the information that we gathered there. So the most direct one is that it helped us to define and understand the issues that we're going to work on in the subsequent process. So going from here, we're going to set up so-called TLAB groups in each of the regions, which are more continuing and constant groups of stakeholders who are really going to work on the issue of developing governance approaches and policy mixes. And so all of that we've learned by now feeds into that. And and then it also goes into the development of the system dynamics model that I already mentioned and our gamified decision support tool. They also needed these local insights and information to make it, as I said in the beginning, actionable and relevant.
Thanks for sharing this. And then I'm going to the very last question of our podcast to you, Sarah. So it's a bit personal, and of course, what in your personal opinion is the most exciting outcome from the project in terms of the new governance model? How, in your opinion, actually transform the current status quo in our 4 Transformative Labs?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of the project and
so
we don't know the outcomes yet, but so this is my hope. I hope that people are going to experience the power of collaboration. I have already seen it various times, so I hope that this will be a good experience for the participants and to see that it's really worth engaging people who are usually not engaged in decision-making process, that this really leads to better decisions and to more innovative solutions. And having said that, so I'm excited to see what solutions are going to come out of these processes, because it's always very surprising what comes out of this. And so I don't know what it is going to be, but this is what we're starting to see now. And in the end, it's up to the stakeholders in the TLABs what it is going to be.
Absolutely. So let's take this note of excitement and also to keep it for our listeners as well, for them to follow the further updates of the project in our podcast. We'll be regularly share all of this information and further developers with you. So stay tuned and follow our social media. It was a great pleasure to me to talk today with our project partner, Sarah Velten, who is a PhD and Senior Manager in Adelphi Research, and also work package leader in GoDigiBioS. Sarah, thank you so much for a podcast and sharing with us such an important methodological approach of our project.
Thank you, Alexander. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you. So our listeners, stay tuned, have a nice one, and see you.